Sound kit check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good, Scott.
Okay, thank you. Who's this?
Hey guys, we'll get started here in just a few more minutes. Kind of waiting for some more people to come on. I think there's going to be a few more that are not here yet, so just give it a few more minutes.
Okay.
Okay, hey there, guys. It's 9 o'clock. I guess we should get this party started. I was just playing some videos here of one of Scott's walkthrough videos that I found online. I don't know if you guys could hear the sound of the disc spinning, but that sure brings back some memories for me. Those old floppy disks and loading, all the continually loading as you play the game. I need to mute myself. Well, making sure the YouTube stream is going. So anyways, let's stop this so we can get Scott on the screen more. Let's see. There we go. Let me pause it over here so I don't hear that disk loading constantly. Anyways, you guys, it's been a while since we've had one of these. We used to do it pretty much once a month, and then something happened a few months ago, and we kind of took a break from it. Not sure why, but here we are. We've got friends from all over the world that are joining us today. So thank you guys for making the time to get here. I know for some of you, it's kind of early and kind of late. And, for me, I'm pretty lucky. It's only 9 a.m. here on the West Coast, but I know some of you are pretty late, like Peter over there in Poland. And I think we have some other guests from around the world here this morning. This is just a real casual conversation. We started these back when COVID started and we were unable to have our in-person meetings. In fact, Howard down here is one of the people who started this on Atari Age, and I kind of kidnapped it from him. He was having some technical problems, so I took it over, and we did it for several months after that. I know people are starting to meet again in person. I know in Texas, the Museum of Video Games has been having some live meetings. In fact, I'm going to try my best to get to the next one. I believe it's going to be in September. I'm going to try to fly out to Dallas and take part in that. I'm kind of jonesing to see some people in person that I have never met in person. One of them would be Thomas. I would hope he would be able to come to that one. And then 8-Bit Guy, of course, I'd like to see David and meet some of the other guys that I've been in contact with over the years on here. Vintage Computer Center is the one who puts this on now, and this is by no means, I'm not trying to sell anything to anybody. You guys know what I got. If you want it, come get it. If you don't, that's fine. No hard feelings. My passion is the 8-bit community, Atari specifically, since that's what I started at when I was a young boy. In fact, I still have that original Atari computer. But over the last 4 or 5 years, I got back into it. I made an S drive a few years ago so I could copy all my floppies, and then started producing those for people. And then when Thomas and Moswell developed the FujiNet, kind of went crazy with the FujiNet. In fact, I've got a couple of 3D printers behind me right now that are printing cases for FujiNets. Had to move them inside. The garage was too hot for them. So my love is Atari and 8-bits, and all I want to do is try to keep this hobby alive and share it with the rest of the people. We've had some pretty cool guests over the last few years. We had the creator of the 6502. Kind of started it with Ken and Roberta Williams, who are now getting back into video games, and it's just kind of blossomed from there. Brian actually is the one who kind of put Scott Adams in my ear several months ago, because Scott Adams would be an awesome guest. And over the last few months, Scott and I have kind of developed a friendship. We talk pretty much daily, at least 1 or 2 times a day. And, he's working on some exciting new things. He's kind of given me a little sneak peek at a couple of the projects he's working on. And I thought it would be kind of fun to have a little chat with Scott today. He's been gracious to join us. We shifted the meeting to Sunday to accommodate Scott, and I'm glad that we could get a lot of people here. I figured we'd have quite a few. I think we've got quite a few that are on YouTube as well right now. And I know many people will watch the replay of this on YouTube at a later date. But I don't want to talk the whole morning away, but I do, again, want to thank all of you for showing up. It really means a lot to me that you showed up, as I'm sure it does Scott too. Who would have thought? How many years has it been? It's got 40 plus years that since you created Adventure, and here we're still talking about it. It's kind of mind baffling to me to think that us mostly middle-aged or over middle-aged geeks are still around and still playing these games and still interested in talking about them. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the meeting over to Scott and let him kind of share his story. I know most of you probably are familiar with it, but I'd love to hear how he got started in all this and his journey and where he's at right now, because I know he's got some really neat things coming up. And Scott, in case you want, I did give you permission to share a screen, make your co-host. So if you have anything you want to share, I don't know if you do or not, but if you do, you're able to do that. And then when Scott's done, as normal, we'll have a Q&A, and we'll go as long as Scott's willing to entertain us. I don't know what his schedule is today, but I do know that he's been really busy. So as long as Scott's willing to entertain our questions, if we could just raise our hands afterwards, and I'll call on people in kind of the order that the hands are raised, so we can kind of keep a little bit of order on here. But you guys have always been awesome in the past. So with that, I'll shut up and I'll turn it over to Scott. So Scott, take it away.
Thank you, Gavin. I really appreciate that. And as Gavin mentioned, I've gotten to know him better over the last few months and really appreciate that too. I like making new friends. I've gotten literally thousands of fan mails over the years, and I always try to turn it around, take myself off the pedestal, and just become a friend. So a lot of people have friended me. We've corresponded over the years. We've talked, we've visited. I saw a few people pop in. I think I saw Rob in here, and I've seen others in person, which was always fun and exciting, and I greatly enjoyed that. I didn't really plan much of a presentation today. I figured I would turn over a lot of it to the questions and then just let it grow organically. For those of you who aren't aware, and you probably all are, I'll just bring you up to date on some of the newer things I've been doing. As you know, Adventure International closed in the mid 80s, and I moved on to other things. I basically felt I was retiring from gaming. Turn of the century, around 2000, for the fun of it, I picked up my old engine and started redoing it to see if I could make it a little more modern. It was originally written in IBM Basic, the version I grabbed. The engine also had assembly language versions too, but fortunately I had the basic version, which was a higher level language than assembler. So I picked that up and I did Return to Pirates Island 2. Quite a few people bought it and seemed to enjoy it. Basically, I took my adventure that I had written strictly for TI and made a newer version of it. So that would be full sentences and that it would run on a newer engine. And at that time, the newer underlying system I used was not Visual Basic, sorry, was Basic 6 from Microsoft. And that was a big step up for it. And then around 2000, I started working on a game called The Inheritance. And I was using that same engine, but it was a brand new game. I brought that out, sold it, and it was for sale for quite a while. I discontinued it a little while ago. I'd like to bring it up even more modern. I haven't decided on that. It's written in, it was written in a more modern version, but still staying in basic. And then I decided I wanted to get into a modern language. So I started doing a C# version of my engine. And the easiest way for me was actually to do from basic to C#, a converter I found that really botched everything up. It took what was fairly concise, easy to read, basic code and turned it into super spaghetti. But it worked. So I was happy to see that. It took about a year to get it fine-tuned and actually working, but I had fun doing that. And I was just doing this because I wanted to. Then in 2016, I went to a game developers conference in Portland called Christian Game Developers Conference and met a lot of people. And that was when I was introduced to the fellow who had the Redwall license, which was a very popular book in middle school. It was actually listed as one of the top 5 bestsellers on New York Times young adult bestseller list, with Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and a few others joining it. A lot of people hadn't heard of it because basically it was never a major motion picture, which I think is changing. Netflix is about to do that. But in any case, I brought out a version. I worked with them with their license, so they actually own the license for the game. Escape the Gloomer, which available on Steam and iOS and Android, except you can't find it on Android right now. Google pulled it because they said, hey, you listed this as a 13 plus age group game, but it has a cute little otter on the cover and he's cuddly. Therefore, this is a kid's game. Okay, well, we're still going round and round with them on that. Any case, each of my games I've been very proud of, very happy with. That was really a lot of fun and one that I'm super, super proud of. That's when Clopus started. Clopus.net is my current company. I am currently working on a couple of things. One, we have an early access on Steam is Adventureland XL. And the XL stands for extra large and also Roman numeral 40, because indeed it's 40th anniversary of the original Adventureland. So I put the whole entire game in. I tried to get the graphics to look kind of sort of like what you saw there going on in the Apple, with a little more modern system, a little cleaner, but still a fun retro feel. And then I put in the XL section, and I put some things in there I'm very proud of. I had a lot of fun doing, and it's still on early access. So if people would play it and give feedback, that'd be wonderful. The game is completely playable up until the very final scene, and that hasn't been completed yet. And currently working a blind compatible mode version of that game for a blind audience. So this is having fun. And then the other thing that I'm currently working on, or have worked on, that's currently out there. It's not under the Clopus net. It's not under Clopus.net. It's under GoLoco, which is a publishing company in Virginia. I've become close friends with, been working with. The first game is you can find it online with any browser. It's called Final Pilot, FINALPILOT.com, finalpilot.com. And it's a battle royale for up to 60 players. You can play it on just about any platform since it's browser based, but it also has a Windows PC client too that you can use. You can get it off of Steam. You can download it directly from the site there. Working also with them, we're about to release something here. We're going into final testing for the release candidate 1. Showed some bugs, but it's coming out in the next week. It's called Bubble Bonk, and it is just a super light, fun game. You can pick up, drop, play for a few minutes, play a little further, and it's sort of a non-violent action game with some fantasy twist to it. And that is going to release on Apple first and then Android after that. And the bubblebonk.com is live, so you can see that website. And so that's pretty much what's been going on. And then there's one more exciting thing happening, and that's called Stereotypical. We just did the Kickstarter launch of that this last weekend, or last Thursday. Time is flying. There I need help. We don't have the funds to push this forward. The whole story is there on the webpage. Take a look. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer it. But I'm looking for people to help us get this thing off the ground. Our budget is very slim to non-existent. We've been going very lean and mean for a long time. I'd like to keep going forward, but as you know, the economy is taking some interesting twists, and there is not a lot of reserves back there. So anyway, that's pretty much bringing you guys up to speed where I am. Does anyone have any questions that they can think of? Feel free to pop in. I'll give a moment. And we've got, looks like some more people joined us late. This is basically question answer session. I would love to answer whatever questions you guys have, and just happy to make new friends.
Hey, Scott, just want to say it is, well, first of all, am I coming through okay? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Brian.
Okay. Just want to say it's very nice to meet you after 40 some odd years. I look back at you and your adventures, your games, as what got me into computers. We had a basic computer lab in my Central Kentucky high school that had TRS-80 Model 1s and Model 3s. And I think it was an early version of Pyramid of Doom was the first game that I ever played on any computer. And from that moment, I was hooked. And that led to all of the other of the original 12 adventures, and then on to Infocom and other companies. But you guys and Infocom were definitely the top of my list. And unlike many, that didn't lead me to a career in computers, but it's been a huge hobby of mine for 40 years. And I do use them on a daily basis, and just look back at the long road. And you are the one that got me started there. And just thank you for that.
I'm always pleased to hear that my games were inspirational to people. And I'm always amazed at how it's touched people's lives. At the time, I wasn't trying to touch lives. I was just doing what I was enjoying and trying to make a few bucks doing it. I've heard from so many over the years that it is strange how God used my efforts. And so it's really neat to meet you, Brian. And I'm glad this forum is here so that we can do this and we have this technology. Because if you think about it, when we were doing these computers back then, those computer games, who would have dreamed of having pocket computers that you could talk around the world, or having this sort of this meeting?
If we could go back 40 years, this would be the height of sci-fi. Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
Yes, absolutely. This is incredible.
Scott, what?
Hey, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Y'all hear me? This is Howard.
Yeah, we hear you, Howard.
Okay. Scott, which was the first computer that you released Adventure on? Was it the TI?
No. Adventureland was my first game, and it was when I bought my very first appliance computer. Like you guys, I was introduced to computers in school, except this was kind of weird. This was in the 1960s, when our resource center, we didn't have computer labs. We had a math science resource center. It was an experiment for the state of Florida. And they got it was a Selectric typewriter with a non-standard head on it. It had what was called a APL head for the language APL 360. And we had a modem there, and we could dial up University of Miami, connect to their mainframe, and use time sharing for APL 360. Anyway, all I did was I saw the typewriter. I saw some kids punching on it. I went over, what's this? And they said, oh, it's the new computer terminal. I said, how do you use it? We said, nobody knows. I went over and talked. I still remember his name, Professor. He was Mr. Nordmeyer. He was the head of the department there. I said, how do I use that thing? He says, well, I don't know. You figure it out. Have fun. I ended up spending $10 of my own money, which in 1960 was a chunk of change, but I was working as a car hop, and getting the manual from the University of Miami and starting to read and understand it. And that was my first computer experience. And the very first thing I did that was of any note was to write a game. Whenever I pick up a new computer or pick up a new language or whatever, I always like to do a game first. At that time, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I'd like to do a game. And so I did tic-tac-toe. So anyway, that was first experience. We move forward now. During this intervening years, my brother invented a 16-bit computer. And then I later built my own homebrew system from one of the world's first kits, which was Sphere, S-P-H-E-R-E. Came out about the same time as Altair MITs. And it has a fascinating history. Anyway, on all these machines, I would be writing games just for the fun of it. Then along came the TRS-80. It wasn't Model 1 because there was only one of them. It was just the TRS-80. It came as a choice of level 1 or level 2. Well, on my Sphere computer, I had been using Tiny Basic, which was an integer-based, non-string orientated BASIC, and it worked rather well. I learned BASIC on that machine. I just like picking up computer languages. But then I was looking at the TRS-80 and I saw it had something exciting. Level 1 was also basically an integer tiny type BASIC because it only had 4K of memory and had a really tiny BASIC, but you could upgrade. You could go to level 2, 16 whole K, gigantic memory. You could never fill it. And a new BASIC from a tiny little company no one had ever heard of except I had, because I had heard of some other things they had been doing. I'd been following them. A place called Microsoft. They had BASIC on there. So I decided to get it. So I got that machine, and that was where what I used as my basis for Adventureland. And it actually started because at work, I was working at Stromberg Carlson. I went in. I was a programmer there. We all were time sharing engineers working on a digital central office, one of the first for telephones, where they were getting away from the switching relays. This was a changeover in paradigm for a lot of things. And somebody I saw was often on one of the back terminals was playing a game, and I said, "You should take a look at this." And I found out, what is it? It's called Adventure. It was Colossal Caves, and it's running on a mainframe. And it was like, oh, how can I play it? Well, you can't. Only the IT department has it. You got to get permission from them. So I finagled permission. And then for a week, I came in early in the morning and stayed late at night, which is something similar I did while I was in high school when I was learning the program. And I just played the game through all 300 points. And then this had a 50-point extra at the end. So I played that and I got done. I thought this was fun. And during this time, I've been thinking, I'm trying to figure out a game I want to write on my level 2 basic that uses strings. I wanted to learn how to use strings because I like the concept. Before then, all high level languages like Fortran did not really let you manipulate strings easily. They were math based. APL is literally Greek. If you look at it, it's a very concise language, very difficult to understand because you're using a lot of Greek symbols that take the place of what you're doing. So I told my friends there, hey, I'm going to write an adventure. I'm going to write a game like this on my TRS-80. And they laughed. They said, that's impossible. This thing's running on a big mainframe. You get a toy. There's no way you'll ever do it. I said, yeah, probably right, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so I started doing that on the TRS-80. I wrote the game, and I wrote, and knowing that I was facing an incredible space problem, I figured, how am I going to do this? So I literally wrote a game language, an interpreter, and the game all at the same time, something that would compile the language, something that would interpret it and understand it and let me put the game in. And I just developed it ad hoc as I went along. So to answer your question, TRS-80 level 2.
Was that the first one you sold? Was that the first one you sold?
Yes, it was.
Uh-huh.
1 second.
Hey, Scott, I've got another Scott that's asking a couple of questions in the chat. His first one, it says, you mentioned using a version of BASIC and then switching to C# and then back to what specifically?
Oh, okay. Hi there. Oh, Scott Jacobson. Hello there. Okay. I was using BASIC. I switched to C#. I didn't, and then back. I did not switch back. I'm always moving forward. I'm currently using C# as the language under my engine. Escape the Gloomers, all written in C#. The interpreter part that understands my language is the spaghetti code. It's one module, just called and the name of the engine now is Clopus. Clopus Sharp, which it has everything that was in the original engine and a lot more that I've added on to it. And then I did some decent structured programming around it because my programming skills obviously grew and expanded with the industry because I've stayed in programming throughout my career. And so C# is underneath the Clopus Sharp engine. It's currently what it works on. And then on top of that, this whole thing then runs on Unity, which is interesting because I was approached by one of the founders of Unity who told me my games were an impetus for him actually going into his career and starting the company. And so he was grateful for that. I've heard that from a number of large companies that are in the industry today, the game industry. You'd recognize them. Some of them are still, they're well known, but invariably what they were saying is they came across my game and it is what inspired their eventual love of going into the career path that they took. which thank you, God, because this is something God was doing. It wasn't my intent, but it was really wonderful to hear the inspiration that was provided. Does that answer your question, Scott?
I'm
He
thinking
said-
that probably answers his second question as well, whereas what are you creating in
Yes.
Adventureland XL in? Which is,
Excel is also written in the Clopus Sharp engine, which is sitting on top of Unity. Right now, it's also, I've got a non-Unity version of it running. Remember I said I've got it all in Unity? Well, the reason for Unity was the write once, play many times feature of Unity, where you get lots of platforms for free. But it is a graphics orientated, not graphics orientated, it has graphics in it, and it was designed like Escape the Gloomer to be more modern, more 21st century. Doing the blind compatible mode, obviously the graphics are not important at that point. So I've pulled out that entire engine, and so the Adventureland XL blind compatible version is simply written using Visual Studio 2020 right now. And it is also just the pure C# running on there.
seems like a lot of
Thank
people are
you.
using Unity nowadays. I know when we had Ken and Roberta here, the new game that they're working on, they're also developing in Unity. It seems like Unity is popular amongst us older
Yes.
developers.
Well, there's two of them, Unity and
Unreal.
Unreal. Absolutely. I have great respect for both engines. For myself, I find C# is a much more conducive language to getting good code written in a short time. So Unreal is a good engine, but since it's not C# based, I'm not as fond of it.
Did you ever do any C or C++ coding in your day, Scott?
Absolutely. As each language came along, I would jump on the bandwagon. At the time when I wasn't writing games, I was working for an aerospace company. I was the one that got them convinced to start using C++ over C on a very important project. So, and it was kind of interesting trying to find some people to help me work that project because they let me head it up. And so I was trying to look for others in the company that were also interested. And I found one other gentleman that was also had been experimenting with it. For myself, I was just amazed at how big a step forward C++ was to C. I was at the event in Louisiana when Microsoft announced C++, the C# Tech Ed. And it was, Bill Gates was there. It was the one and only time I ever got to see him because he introduced it. And I got to see C# from its very beginnings at that conference. And I thought, wow, yes, this is going somewhere. And it was written on top of .NET. And the one thing they could never really say, what is .NET? That really isn't a language. It's indeed a framework that that things can sit on top of. So C# is still doing well. You've got a lot of pushback from it. Companies like Google and Apple that don't want to seem to be following Microsoft come up with their own solutions. Java's out there. I'm not a big fan of Java, though I appreciate the things that Java came up with that C# adopted. So there's been a lot of crossover there. All in all, I'm still, of the computer languages that I currently know, right now C# is my go-to language, as seeming to flow the best and do what I need it to do.
I'm teaching a bunch of kids C# right now, and to get them into Unity because they want to create games in Unity now.
Yes, absolutely. That is absolutely wonderful.
And they're going from basically not even understanding basic, so I have to start teaching them basic to start teach them C#. But they're
Yes.
all excited about that.
I've mentored a lot of kids over the years and taught them languages. Usually what I do is I teach them to write a game first. And the game I usually pick is the first one that I did. And because it flows naturally, and that's tic-tac-toe. You can start with it so simple, just get a board up there. Then get it so the player can type in letters or the numbers and put X's and O's on the board. Then keep going and start putting it in so two players can play one against the other. Then let the game figure out who won. Then finally start putting in logic so the computer can play and always win. So a multi-stage process there.
And then we have war games.
Shall we play thermonuclear war?
Yeah. Well, the one thing that you said that I really appreciate is when you started out, nobody knew how to use the computer and you were just told figure it out. And that kind of reminds me of, back in the day when we first got these computers, there wasn't Google, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't YouTube. So we just got a box and okay, figure it out. And I've noticed over the last 3 years, especially over the last 3 years when I started, really peddling the FujiNet and the S drives, that people have kind of lost that ability. It seems like if they don't have explicit A, B, C, D step directions, they have no idea how to do anything. And it seems like that's almost become a lost art, where we used to get these electronic boxes that were all cool with no instructions, yet we all figured out how to use them. And I'm sorry to see that, I think Windows has kind of taken that ability away from newer generations, and even some of us old guys. I forgot 99.9% of the things I used to be able to do with my old Atari. I used to be able to do so much stuff. And, when Thomas and Moswell released the Fuji, it was kind of right back in my face how much I'd forgotten in the last 40 years. And, where's my mouse? Oh my gosh, I can't click on something anymore.
Yes.
But it just seems like nowadays, people really have to have the directions. And I kind of miss that. That was the fun thing about computers back in the late 70s and early 80s, was figuring out what they could do and how to get them to do things. And I don't know, it seems like things like Unity are almost making it so you just drag stuff around the screen. I know it's more complicated than that, but I have played around in Unity a little bit. And, compared to what it used to be to get an image on a screen, Unity makes it so easy.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
definitely. And you're right, because the kids they'll say, "How to do this?" I say, "Look it up."
Yeah, Google and YouTube have done so much for us as a society, as a people, and at the same time, they have hindered us so much as a society.
Well, I remember as a kid going to the mall and wanting to go to the bookstore and buy, the latest book on whatever it was, BASIC or anything with computer related, and you'd spend, $50 to $100 on this book. And, as a poor little kid growing up in the mountains, I could either buy books or floppy disks, but I very rarely could buy both. And, you had to learn the old fashioned way by, okay, I'm going to try this and let's see what happens. I remember when I got Mapping the Atari, that book, that opened up a whole world of things because I could peek and poke all over the place and do amazing things with a computer. But I'm still stunned that there's as many people that are into it. When they released the FujiNet, the amount of FujiNets just that I have sent out worldwide is astronomical to me. I mean, who would have thought that these computers that are 40 plus years old are still in operation? And I'm looking forward to other versions to see what other communities are out there. I know, the Atom FujiNets have not been anywhere near as popular, and I didn't figure they would be just because the community isn't as large. But the Atari, Commodore, and Apple communities are absolutely still strong. So, I'm excited to see your latest game, Scott, because I started a little bit later. Your stuff was a little bit before my time, not much, but a little bit. But my introduction to that type of gaming started more with Sierra Online and the graphic turn-based games.
Mhm.
And then I do remember Zork. I remember getting frustrated with that game. But those are the types of things that actually brought me into this field as well. And I know that you're a pivotal founder in that community. I've talked to Ken and Roberta. They know who you are, of course. You guys know each other, and I thank you too. You really changed my childhood, and I'm sure pretty much everybody is on here as well. So looks like Scott's got some more stuff to do.
I just want to say I have to differ with the statement that the old computers didn't come with instructions. I mean, the Apple came with a programming manual, gave examples, programming, stuff like that. The Commodore 64 came with a book. I mean, most of the computers, the old computers, if you've got, you got them back in the day and got them, as they were shipped, they came with instruction books and that taught you basic and taught you how to program. So
that's
remember when
yeah,
computers? Remember when computers had schematics?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, that was so cool.
yeah. So yeah, I have to, these days you gotta, and you complain, well, why does everybody need Google, etc. Well, you buy a computer these days and you're lucky if you get a piece of paper with it that's the warranty card. Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, come on, a computer coming with a book that actually teaches you how to use it. Now that's, it doesn't happen. So that's why you get, these people, that rely on Google and the documents there to be able to do anything, because you don't have those books that ship with machines anymore. They're not there.
Yeah,
And
true.
also-
I remember when I got my Atari, it did come with a very thin book, but it did give you the basics on, a couple of basic sample programs. But like I said, my love for it was just figuring out how to do it.
Yeah.
I know this computer can do it. I just got to figure out how to do it. And I think I was kind of like a little detective back when I was a kid, and I like tearing things
Plus-
apart and figuring it out. So.
Plus, you were using one in a computer lab, and there's no saying, where the manual's actually sitting around in the lab also, or
Mhm.
available to you. Scott brought up a good point. He said TRS-80 Level 2 Basic manual taught using all game examples, and that's almost true. There's one thing it didn't teach that wasn't a game example, and that was the poem Robert Frost, where you'd have the snowflakes falling, because I remember keying that in to see what sort of fantastic graphics I could do. And as we know, TRS-80 Model 1 isn't much in the way of graphics. So
What some of the guys did with the TRS-80 Model 1, actually, it boggles the mind with regards to graphics. Dancing Demon, early example there. Holy
yes,
crap.
yes, Android Nim. Oh my goodness, yes. It's like,
And
how did they do that?
and then, well, I mean, and even from your own company there, Adventure International, you guys had what was it called? It was they had done a version of it called Destiny, the Cruiser on Atari, but on the TRS-80 it was called Starship or something similar.
Starfighter.
Starfighter, yes.
Yeah, which is interesting because I don't know how many of you know the movie, The Last Starfighter.
Mhm.
They actually approached us and bought the license to the name from us
Wow.
because
Okay.
our game preceded them.
Wow.
And that was done by Sparky Starks, who has since
Sparky
passed.
Starks.
He was an incredibly gifted young man at the time. And he wrote an incredibly in-depth manual that came with it too. So that was all that was his work. This was one of the few things I did very little with. I acted strictly as publisher. And it was just amazing. I thought it was a fantastic game. And yes, it was all with the very, very primitive graphics that were available.
Yes. And another name I feel that needs to be brought up as far as Adventure International is concerned. There was a certain programmer of course, everybody knows Russ Wetmore on the Atari side and all the stuff that he did with Preppy 2, all of that. Fantastic work on Atari Macro Assembler. But what was even more mind-boggling to me, as I took and cracked the program and took it apart, Neil Larimer, who wrote Rearguard and what was the other one? Stratus. And he did those in a mix. He did those in a mix of basic and machine language, and was able to take and squeeze a whole lot of action arcade out of almost nothing.
Yes, yes. And he's someone I never connected with after the AI days, so I don't know his history since then. But yes, absolutely amazing. Some of the very talented people. I wasn't planning to be a publishing company. I just wanted to get my one game out. And after getting my one game out, people said, okay, you got any more?
Yeah.
So I started writing more. Okay. And then
because
one
it's
day,
an addiction, Scott. It's an addiction. We get addicted to it. We want more.
yes. Well, I guess part of the problem is I was writing games that mostly were only playable once. There was not a real good reason to repeat the play. I did try putting some repeat repeat plays in some of them to give you a score and a time to see if you can beat this. And of course, some of the games were unnaturally unfair. You just had to keep trying over and over as you died. And I apologize now in retrospect. Mission Impossible, which
I still haven't finished that one.
You may never. I don't know. How many times do you want to die?
A couple of thousand by the time I finally go, well, I think I'll move on.
Yep. So I definitely apologize for that. Then the very first one I got in was Doug Carlston sent me Galactic Empire and said, "Would you publish this?" I was like, "Oh, we're not publishing company." Talked it over with Alexis at the time, and it was like, "Yeah, why can't we? Let's try this." And so that was where the very first game that we ever published that wasn't my work.
Wait, so you inadvertently made Broderbund happen?
Absolutely, it wasn't inadvertent. It was same thing with Sierra Online. Ken worked for me first. He was he wasn't a reseller. He was a distributor on the West Coast, where he would go door to door and push the games. And then yes, Doug Carlston and his brother. I remember the San Francisco Computer Fair where we finally got to meet, and they had set up a booth because they wanted to try doing their own publishing. And I think his aunt ended up funding them. She saw the potential after that, and that's truly when it took off. But the very first seed for the whole thing was his game being published through Adventure International, which is so cool. I think that is so neat.
Yep, small world.
Yeah, Ken even mentioned selling your software in his book that he released last year. He talked about his, selling your baggy, your Ziploc bag packaged games back in the early days.
And I didn't realize till later that my games were an inspiration to Roberta because she had played them. She wanted to do something similar on her own, just like I was inspired by Colossal Cave.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of passing on the inspiration or passing on the torch almost, which was really cool.
And you've inspired people even directly with those things, with those databases and those engines, because believe it or not, there's a thriving, for those that don't know, there's a thriving interactive fiction community that is building adventure games in both the Adventureland database format and using Zill. So
That blew me away. I saw at one point somebody showed me an early copy of either Unix or Linux, and they said, "Do you know your interpreter's built into the core?" And they showed it to me.
Yeah,
like you can play your games on every version of this because it's built in as a core utility.
Yes.
Okay.
Part of the GNU core set. Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun, and it's wonderful seeing how inspiration travels. God touches one person, lets them touch others, and then it grows from there, which is really awesome. God is good.
Yeah.
No matter what your religious beliefs, I encourage you, connect with God. He's there. He wants to hear from you, and he wants a personal connection. I know I've gotten a personal connection with him. It has made an incredible difference in my life. So,
how'd you get hooked up with the big boys like TI and
oh my good, Marvel. Do you know I was the very first Spider-Man authorized game? I had the full rights to their entire catalog.
Really?
I wrote comics for them, Quest Pro, yes, and TI. The way it happened was they came to me.
Wow.
They literally, when Marvel wanted to do games, they'd already done I believe at the time they'd already done a console Spider-Man for Atari. And they decided they wanted to get into the burgeoning home computer market. And I talked to Joe Calamari, vice president at Marvel. And he said, well, what I did was I asked around. well, what should we do to get in the market? And he says, everybody said, go talk to Adventure National, see if you can get Scott Adams. And that was incredible. It was such a privilege to work with them. I worked with some of their most well-known and talented artists and inkers. I got to write comics. I got full control. I got full license. They even gave me a pre-release version of the Marvel Universe before it came out so that I could see all the characters. I asked them and got a complete subscription to every book that they were publishing, and it came in every month. And I read every single copy because I wanted to immerse myself. And they said, okay, so we had a 12 game deal. I was going to do 12 games. I could do whatever I wanted. They had the editorial right to say no if there's something they didn't like. They never said no. And then when the game was, when they wanted to know, what am I going to do for the first game? I said, I want to do Hulk. And they said, Hulk? Well, yeah, he's popular, but he's not our number one character. Probably our number one right now is Spider-Man. I say, no, absolutely. That's going to be number two. I'm going to experiment on Hulk. When I feel like I've got it right, then I'm going to do Spider-Man. And Hulk was okay. I'm not real pleased with it, but it was okay, and it worked. Spider-Man was far, far better. And Spider-Man was my first using the newer engine with full sentence parsing and everything else that goes with it. So it was it was tremendous. And then TI, same way. They came to us and said, we're coming out with a new computer. Everybody says we got to have your games on it. Okay. For them, this was, I already had a catalog of 12 games. So they said, well, we'll put, and they were text, and they said, well, what we want to get a game that is strictly for TI. We want an exclusive game. Oh, okay. What about all the games we've already written? Okay, we'll do those. We'll do those. And what we agreed on there was they would have an adventure cartridge that you got, and then databases that came on cassette for each of the 12 games. And I thought, that's fine. And then the game that I did as their exclusive for that time was Return to Pirates Island, which was, I had a lot of fun with Pirates Island. I didn't want to redo Adventureland. I was trying to think, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I came up with this, and it's probably it is, as far as I know, the world's first graphic computer game, because graphic adventure game, because it does have graphics, because TI had graphics by this time. All the new computers coming online would. Like every adventure I've ever written, it does not rely on graphics. Every single one of my games can be played text only. Always have been, and my intent is always will.
Yeah.
So
a lot of the, sorry, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Thomas.
I was going to say the example that all of the Quest Pro games were actually converted to run on the original text engine as well. I have all of those.
Oh, cool. I did not know that.
Yes.
So they were able to, wow, that's interesting.
In fact, it was backported. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, that would have taken some work, because I was using features of the new engine, the Saga Plus, that weren't in the original engine I wrote. That's mind-boggling. Thanks for sharing that, Thomas. I did not know that.
Peter's got his hand up. He's being nice and patient with us. So what's going on in Poland this evening, Peter? And you're muted, Peter. Yeah, let me help you with that.
Yeah, we are tired because actually still we have real war games here. So
Yes.
the help for Ukrainians are our daily job, and our job are after our job. So this is not very fine situation. And I have also nice to meet you, Scott.
You too, Peter. And I am praying for all the people that are being impacted by this horrible war.
Yeah, that's right. The situation is that that we had on the beginning we have a humanitarian crisis. Next, we had a kind of war on Ukraine. Right now, we have a war in East Europe. So Russia tried to fight with other nations here.
Somebody.
But my general questions are. If you think about whole period of banking the IT industry, I'm curious about your greatest success and kind of failures, and what is your advice to current digital creators?
Probably the first advice is make sure what you're doing is something you enjoy. Are you doing something that you greatly would enjoy playing yourself? Or are you doing it just because you want to make money? If you are, then that's a totally different way to look for success. I don't look for financial success. I try to look for the path that I'm finding that God wants to put in front of me. And I know I said this before, but I really think connecting with God is probably one of the key points to ultimately having the greatest success. I am not going to claim that the best way to be successful is to make a lot of money. Because if you think about it, the richest person in the world could be the beggar on the street. Because to me, success is measured and riches are measured by, do you have what you want? Are you satisfied? If you're always wanting more and more, you can become the most powerful, strongest person in the world, but if it's not enough, it'll never be enough, and there'll never be satisfaction. So it's just sort of a life philosophy there. As far as doing games, I like to do games that I know are bring joy to others. I don't like to role play evil. I don't like to do evil games. I don't want anything. I want just the opposite. I want my players to feel like they're accomplishing something. They're feeling good about themselves, and they're overcoming an adverse situation. So for me, that's what I find satisfying. The biggest moment for me is when someone's playing one of my text or one of my adventure games, whatever one, is when they get into a puzzle and they figure it out on their own, and they get that aha moment, the light bulb goes off, and this look of pure happiness surrounds them. They did it. They figured it out. And that's what I want to give people, that joy. So I think if you're doing something that give people joy as opposed to bringing them down, it's the right route to take as far as I'm concerned. Does that answer your question, Peter?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to share another thing that, for example, we talked about old computers, retro computers, and books. And this is my one of the first book for Atari. It's a basic. It's about basic, and it was my first book that I bought in 1987. So I was 11 years old, and after many years, in this year, I met one guy that wrote this book in Poland, and right now he's not in IT business. He's right now owner of hotel and restaurant, and during last 3 months we did refinancing for 600 people from Ukraine that they live there and
Wow.
a lot, and we help them. So the past was connected with the future, and I have a note from Atari to the charity. So during this year, so this is kind of moment in my life that
is a highlight. Yes, that is wonderful.
Yeah.
And by the way, there was a question earlier about what I wrote Adventure on first, definitely the TRS-80. But of all the classic machines, the Atari was absolutely one of my favorites. Later when the fancier 16-bit color machines came out, the Atari ST, even though it really wasn't Atari anymore, it was just, but that was also a favorite of mine. But the Atari 800 was my workhorse. I would do things on the TRS-80 for the text adventure side, then I'd switch over to the Atari 800 for the graphics side, and that was my platform. I loved that machine. I didn't like its peripheral chain, and I know why they did it because of the FCC. But I did love the machine. I love the interior design. So
We
tremendous memories of that.
we had a different history in IT world in Europe because, for example, in Poland, in Central Europe, actually we had Atari Z Spectrum, Amstrad, and Commodore. So
Yes.
we didn't have Apple II or Texas Instruments or the Coleco Adam and other those machines, and we've been moved in the time about 10 years. Because for example, I had my first computer in 1986 because in Central and East Europe we had Iron Curtain, so we didn't have new technologies. And right now this is what Russia facing. They are blocked with new technologies also. So.
Hey, looks like we had another Pete with his hand up too, Peter, when you're done. So we got Pete Gardner that wants to ask a question.
Hello, everyone. It's really great to get to see you all. We've never met before. I've been a lurker for a long time. Scott, I have to tell you, I'm feeling a little bit of, I don't know, awe right now because I'm speaking to an icon from my youth. And one of the first things I want to mention, though, is I admire and appreciate your openness about your faith, our faith, actually. I think that's a really important factor when it comes to being able to get really good, creative entertainment out there that actually benefits people rather than sending them down into some sort of dark place, which seems to be the major trend these days. But to bring it back to me, you and I have had some sporadic communications throughout the years, very brief and a little bit here and there. I just really appreciated your openness, your willingness to just talk to me, who's a virtual nobody in your circle. And I have a feeling you just do that with everybody. That's just who you are, and I appreciate that very much too. I just wanted to very quickly go through my own history that is a direct result of you and your influence. My very first experience with your creative content was way back in I think in the 80s. A good friend of mine and I we purchased a copy of Mystery Funhouse from for the TRS-80. I didn't have a TRS-80. My friend did. I was always over at his house. I was there for way too long a time. We were working all the way through it. We never completely solved it. I solved it myself much later on. But this game was an inspiration to both of us. We went on to both at the same time. We got careers in electronic arts for quite a few years, and then we both went on to create our own companies. My friend, his name is Chris Taylor. He went on to create gas-powered games.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you may have had some communication with him. He's as big a fan as I am. I myself went on to create a company called Helicon Technologies, which you've probably never heard of because we did things that were more in the background. And unfortunately, as a result of the events of 9/11, our funding source, which was based out of the World Trade Center, just evaporated. And so that's what happened there. But I stayed in the game industry for a long time. I'm not in it anymore. But you had a direct effect on our careers. We became as successful as we were able to be because of your initial influence, and then throughout the years later, just your persistence and your willingness to create, regardless of whether you're on the top 10 games of the year or anything like that. You continued to create and do what you loved, and that inspired both of us to create and do what we loved. And specifically, you were a great inspiration for me in the sense of we were both being men of faith. My friend, unfortunately, is not a person of faith, even though he's a great person. So I just wanted you to know that here's another story of how you have thoroughly and deeply inspired people with what you've done, not really intending to do it, as you said, but you've had an amazing ripple effect on so many people. And I just wanted to thank you for that and honor you for that.
Thank you, Pete. I enjoy getting to meet you here, and I hope this is not a single instance. Personally, I'd love for people to continue to contact me. My Facebook account is open for people to friend me. I usually ask them how they know me. I'm trying to get rid of spammers and like to know, but my email is also available. For those who want to find me, you can go through the Clopus website or my website, clopus.net or msadams.com, which was my personal site, which I haven't updated in a long time. Email's the same, msadams@msadams.com. And even if we don't connect ever again here, I think we'll connect in eternity, because I have this faith, this hope. And I want, when I get to eternity personally, I'm going to spend 1,000,000 years with everybody there just to get to know them, because why not? I've got all the time in the world at that point. But anyway, I am so happy to hear that this was a positive influence in your life. That makes me feel very happy. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, thank you. And I do have a question for you. Yes. Now, as I mentioned, and I've touched, I've spoken a lot about the game that inspired everything here, Mystery Funhouse. Could you describe to me your sort of the creative process that you went through to get to the creation of that game?
Oh, yeah, because that one's got a really interesting story behind it. Originally, I wrote Adventureland. I was married at the time. We had a new baby. My wife's name was Alexis. And I was spending a lot of time, as geeks tend to do, on my hobby and writing games and doing stuff. And I was probably ignoring her. I did Pirate Adventure. And then I came home and it was like, hey, where are all my TRS-80 discs? Because by this time I had a disk drive, whole 90K on one floppy. You imagine how much room that is? That's awesome. Anyway, they're all gone. And she says, sit down. I put them in the oven. I'm going to turn them on and bake them unless we have a talk. And basically what came out of that talk was she wanted to be part of the company. She wanted to have input. And the first thing that she wanted and we agreed on was she was going to write a game. So Mystery Funhouse was her game, sort of, kind of. She would come up. She tried to learn my language, but my language was a little esoteric for a non-technical person, and she wasn't real skillful at putting it together, but she had ideas of what she wanted to see in there. So I took what she was doing and we sort of did a team effort. I put the openings in where you had to get in. I tended to like to have openings to each one of my games where you weren't just thrust into the entire game. You'd have short little mini adventures that sort of opened up the bigger adventure later. But all in all, a lot of that stuff came from her imagination. And then I was helping her put it together with asking questions and pointing to things and saying, yeah, but what if, could we do this? What if this happened? And then feeding off of that and putting it in. So that was Mystery Funhouse, which, by the way, was one of the first games I ever got sued over.
Okay, now you have to tell that story.
Why? Okay.
Because people want to know.
lived in, this was near, unfortunately, this was more near the end of Adventure International's run, or during the time the industry was starting to collapse. We got information from a friend of a friend saying, hey, I heard someone's going to be suing you over Mystery Funhouse. What do you mean? Well, you've stolen their copyright. They're what? They're trademarked. They have the name Mystery Funhouse trademarked. There was a physical place in Orlando, a tourist attraction. Can you guess what it was called? Mystery Funhouse. And they actually did proceed to sue Adventure International, and that didn't resolve well, because ultimately they really got nothing out of it. I gather they were also having problems, and they were trying to just do whatever they could to get income.
Yeah.
But in any case, that wasn't a pleasant experience. The name came from Alexis. I did not come up with that name. And I thought when she picked the name, I was thinking, you know, there's a place in town that's called that. Well, who cares? No one's going to notice.
That was before Google.
Yeah, really. And I actually went down to there and went through the place and paid to go in, and noticed every place they used Mystery Funhouse, they didn't put a TM on it, SM, nothing. Nowhere did they make any claims in print about what that name, that it was their property. But in any case, that was the story behind that. I did get sued for one other game, Lance Miklas's Star Trek. That wasn't actually a lawsuit as much as it was a cease and desist, where they came after us. Oh no, I'm sorry, I forgot about Secret Mission.
The list goes on.
Oh, three of them. So Secret Mission was originally called Mission Impossible, and I was doing it as a salute to one of my favorite shows as a kid growing up, the original Mission Impossible. I watched as a kid. And I got contacted saying, no, you can't use this name anymore. They weren't trying to sue us. It was just, stop doing it. We're claiming this copyright. I thought, yeah, I'm not going to take on their lawyers, so I'm just going to rename it. So that wasn't that big a deal. Star Trek, Paramount approached and said, that's our name. You can't have a Star Trek game. And they sued us and said they'd settle out of court for $10,000. Oh, lovely. Thank you very much. I'll take it and run.
Here's your check. Goodbye.
Yes, I will be good, which was kind of sad because it hurt Lance. Lance was an incredibly talented Tierra City programmer. We've since connected since then at the Tierra City event a few years back, got to meet him and his wife, fantastic people. And I was so sad about what happened. He said he held a big grudge against me for a very long time, until he came to his faith and realized he needed to forgive, which he did. And we had a tremendous meeting as brother to brother. It was amazing. So God is good.
Hey, Brian, you've been sitting there patiently too. What's going on?
Thank you, Rob, by the way. I just saw your thing in the chat. I saw you had joined earlier.
Unmute here. Scott, you were talking earlier about some of the graphics, and you mentioned the Saga series, and I know the original 12. Of course, they started converting those into Saga with graphics. I'm only aware of the first 6 of the original 12 that were done that, and there've been a lot of debates online. People saying, "Oh, well, I've seen 7, 8, 9, 10." Do you recall if anything past 6 of the original 12 was done?
Right now, I'm drawing a blank. If it doesn't show up in the Apple catalog, you pull up one of the older. We publish catalogs, and they are available. There are prints on the internet. I don't have a collection of them, but if you can find an older catalog, you'll see what the history was. I honestly don't remember. Gosh.
I will look. You know, I have found probably all of the old originals, because they held a special place in my heart for many years. But like many of us, Mom and Dad get tired of seeing stuff in the attic and get rid of it.
Yes,
And none of my old Atari or Adventure International catalogs survived that time period.
which is sad.
So,
I would
yeah.
love to see some of my old catalogs again. I've
You
gotten
can
some
see, I think
prints.
probably all or most of them are available on archive.org. They've been scanned, but I've got them archived myself. I haven't really thought to, but yeah, I'll look back and see if I can find any.
It'll tell you exactly what was available.
All righty. Well, listen, hey guys, I'm going to stick around a while longer, but I'm going to have to bow out shortly. I'll watch the rest on YouTube, but before I do, I just thought I'd say goodbye.
Brian, it was wonderful to
you.
meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And everyone enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the inspiration, Brian.
And before I forget, we've had some extra people just come online, go offline. If you want to help me, and I do need help, I need it tremendously. And I hate to do this, say it, but I need help financially. We're trying to do a Kickstarter. We have 30 days to put together the funding we need to do this initial project. And the way Kickstarter works is if we don't meet our minimum goal, we don't get it. And if we don't get it, I don't know what we're going to do. I'll see what doors God opens instead. But go to clopus.net. At the very top, there's a Kickstarter thing that you can click on. And if it touches your heart and you want to help, please do so. And if you don't, that's okay too. It's however God leads you. I just wanted to mention that. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm getting my t-shirt. I like my t-shirts. So you guys, don't be shy. Come on, I know some of you have some questions and you're just dying to ask. So
I've posted a link to a screenshot showing Quest Probe 2 running under scot-free.
Oh my goodness, I'm loading it up right now. Thomas, that's incredible.
Yep.
No, that's not possible. Wait a second. Some of the commands had to be full sentence, like drop Dr. Ock on the scale. So I guess they must have broken up into double commands like my original game.
Yeah, that's most likely what's happened. But yes, somebody actually went back and backported both of them, like Hulk and Spider-Man.
Wait a second. CBM 64 version? CBM.
Yes.
Commodore Business Machines?
As in Commodore.
Brian did a version? That would have been right. Yes, because we were still publishing through AI UK. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So there you go. At least, we try to preserve all this stuff.
Swansea University Computer Society.
Yeah, that's that's the scot-free interpreter. Yes.
Okay, and that has an interesting lifespan of its own. I had a fan in Europe who did that originally.
Yes. Oh yes. He and I are good friends as well.
Looks like we got another question in the chat. Rob's asking, what was the most successful project AI ever created and distributed?
It depends on how you determine success. I'm going to say I think I would have say it was Marvel, because that was such a tremendous connection to so many people. I was actually appearing in their comic books where they have an editorial section and a lot of teasers going on there. So there was a good spread of the possibilities of AI going that route. Keep in mind, success, it can be measured in different ways. So to me, what's the biggest successful project we ever did? Adventureland. Because that probably had the most impact over everything for so many that first tried it. Then after that, probably Pirate Adventure, because a lot of people seem to remember that one. It has stuck with them that got to play the early ones. It doesn't mean it was the only one they remembered, but it did stick.
Hey, back in the day when you were making these, Scott, what kind of copy protection, if any, did you use on any of these early release games that you did? Was there did you have any kind of mechanism in place to protect?
We tried. We had some stuff on them. On Atari, as you know, there was a company called Happy Drive that came out with a very interesting, well put together piece of hardware that had the ability.
Gee, I wonder who ran that company.
So no bias there, is there, Scott?
But it had the ability to crack our games with copy protection because we were using stuff that was built in for the initial drives. For those who don't know, by the way, Happy Computing was my brother who lived on the West Coast, and no animosity whatsoever. I actually whenever I wrote a new game, wrote stuff, I always shipped it to him. Have fun with it. He wanted to make a business cracking it. Fine by me.
There have been some groups of people who have been trying to interview him for years.
Yes. Richard can be a recluse. So we're still actively connected via Facebook, him and I. We belong to we belong to at least one secret group that is very interesting, that he is a big participant in. It has nothing to do with computer gaming or anything else. Turns out I was originally approached by somebody thinking they were talking to Scott Adams, the cartoonist, trying to invite me to this group of people that had very interesting discussions going on. They thought he would add to it. The person who invited me himself is of note. I'm not naming names. I'm not going to give any further information on it. But the thing was, he was actually aware of me as the game writer too, and was just as happy that he contacted me and invited me in. And I really enjoyed the group. I enjoyed the discussions. So I said, I think maybe my brother would fit in here, and he has. So it's been absolutely fascinating. You can, if nothing else, if you're trying to reach Richard, I'm happy to forward things to him. I'm not going to step on his privacy any more than he wants it to be done. So I don't know. He may be interested now. He may not.
Well, Scott, if he's ever interested in this kind of forum, Scott, I'd love to have him. We like the hardware side as well as the software side, and
yes, boy,
and many of us
are stories.
Many of us are very familiar with the products that he helped design and create.
Richard, if you do watch this, just know that you're loved and people would like to connect with you.
Absolutely. He was inspirational as well. Your family was pretty blessed to have two boys that made such a huge impression on so many people's lives.
Well, I've got two other siblings too, another younger brother and a sister. So I'm very, very pleased. What they've done in society too, which is pretty amazing also. So all in all, I think God has blessed our family, and
absolutely.
It's nice to know that God was able to use our efforts to touch people's lives, and still does.
Yep. Hey, Howard, and I think this might be our same Howard coming back. He's asked a question in chat. Maybe it's not the same one. And I'm assuming he means some of your older games, not the newer ones, because the newer ones, you handle cross-platform implementation with Unity. But he says, can you talk a bit about how you managed cross-platform implementation? So again, I'm assuming back in the day, the old software, how did you handle the cross-platform?
Okay, I'm looking at okay. What I would do for, this is going to sound funny, but for Return to Pirates Island, which I did for the TI, which was the graphic version, I first wrote the game on probably on my TRS-80 at that time. If it was still the 2-word sentence, all my 2-word games were written using the TRS-80. Later, I switched over to the IBM PC when it started becoming available. My original full sentence parser was done on the IBM PC there. My games are written, and as you can see from Scott Free and the whole thing, people call it a database. I call it a language and an interpreter. Not really necessarily a database, because the game itself would be one structure, the interpreter a second structure. So once I wrote the game, the only thing I had to modify going to other platforms might have been byte order in some cases, but in general, all I had to do is get the interpreter rewritten. Excuse me, 1 second. I had the interpreter written originally in Microsoft Basic for the first 2 games. After that, I switched over to assembly language. I took my Basic and I rewrote it myself, so sort of hand compiled it because Basic was interpretive on the TRS-80. And then this assembly language Z80 code I could use on all the Z80 machines. I then did a 6502 version for Apple and all 6800 version. So those were the, if I remember right, those are the CPUs I was primarily targeting. TI came along. It used its own processor, and I believe I rewrote the assembler for it, the assembly language version on that one. So that is both the graphic game and the basic the cartridge interpreter would have been written in assembler on that platform. Does that answer it, Howard? And yep, different Howard. So
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You know, TI back then didn't have as much as the other computers, but having your games was really, truly enjoyable for me when I was a kid. Thank you.
oh, wonderful. I am so happy to hear that. Do you want to share your last name?
UMAN. So I'm unhuman on the Atari Age forums, for example, but yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Well,
Howard.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Eric, I see the look in your eyes. I know you've got to ask something.
No, it's how cool is this, right? I mean, I've just been sitting back listening and kind of nodding my head just over and over with everything that everyone's been saying, Scott. So I'll just echo the same thing. I mean, I probably was like you, Gavin. I might have come in a little bit later. I do remember Adventureland on the TRS-80s at the local Radio Shack, probably being my very first kind of exposure to. But really what I remember is on the Atari. You know, the old classic silver label Adventure International and Pirate Adventure in particular, you just said, a lot of people remember that really resonates with me in my childhood, and particularly my best friend at the time. We just spent so much time working through those games and the 2-word commands. And I've joked before that I remember there was a whole, I don't know if this was healthy at the time, but I'd go through like a whole period of my childhood where I was like thinking in 2-word commands in real life, because everything I was doing, I was like, open door, you know, because I was just so engrossed. But it definitely stimulated the imagination and you know, your mind. It's interesting because the graphics were rudimentary enough that they didn't like fill in all the blanks for you. You still were rendering real time, and they kind of took it to a different level. And when you were talking about seeing your old catalog and stuff, I started just digging around just now, literally. And how cool is this? I mean, here's my original Pirate Adventure.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And then look at this. I was like, oh, yeah. Look at it. So then you got Strange Odyssey, Voodoo Castle.
Whoa.
Voodoo Castle, the other
So
disc.
you played a number of
Adventureland.
them then.
Oh, I think I had them all, or at least all of them that were available at the time. But it's just, I didn't realize I still had that many of them, but I do. And how about this? Do you guys remember these? Do you want to have your program published?
Oh, wow.
I just saw that, and it's like funny, hilarious. I remember I used to see this and just kind of dream like, yeah, that would be so cool someday. Anyway, definitely inspiration, Scott. So again, echoing. I guess my question would be though, maybe along the lines of the Mystery Funhouse question. But for yourself, you know, you talked quite a bit about the technical side and the programming languages and kind of the engines, and you stayed involved in that throughout this whole career, which is amazing. But more from a creative standpoint, you know, the plot, the story content, the puzzles, the characters. I mean, I'm from what I gather, you were kind of the force behind all of that side of each of these creations too. Is that correct?
Majority of them, yes, of my games. There were 3 games that I wasn't. As I discussed earlier, don't know if you're on for that, was Mystery Funhouse, which was my wife Alexis, and she did a good 70%. And then I did the final 30%, putting it all together, making it work, adding stuff and fixing. Another one was Doug Carlson, who I believe is not Doug Carlson. Okay, I'm getting old. Well, that's what happens when you cross over 70. Okay. Anyway, it was Pyramid of Doom. If somebody wants to look up that game, tell me who the author is. It was okay, can't remember his name. He took my game and totally disassembled it, figured out the system, went in and wrote his own game in it and sent it to me. And tremendous technical talents. And you think, wow, what is this guy doing? He must be a mainframe programmer. No, he's a lawyer. And he's still going strong. But that I just helped edit that one. And he did good 90% of that game. I just had to, we went back and forth. If this was the first time we agreed we're going to publish somebody else's adventure using my engine, but I wanted it to fit my criteria. So he was willing to work with me, and we got it to where I found it acceptable. And another one was Golden Voyage. Same thing there. This was a kid who started his own company later. And again, I'm having a mind block with names. Sorry about that. I can be really bad with names and faces. And he did a very good job on that. We published that for him. Alvin Files, thank you, Bob. Rob found it. It's Alvin Files was the lawyer, and we've connected since on Facebook. He's still around and doing very well. But what an incredible genius that man was to be able to do this. I was super, super impressed. So that was, everything else was mine. I can even remember times of how I was thinking about the games, how I was developing them. It was like each game that I did, I wanted to do something I hadn't done before. It was always my intent. There'd be something in the game that I was pushing the envelope a little further, doing things differently. I didn't want to repeat myself. And I wanted to explore different genres. I was an avid reader, always have been, still am. And so I wanted to explore putting my games in different environments and different settings. Some of them I'm very pleased how they turned out. I think I did what I was hoping to do. Ghost Town worked out very well. The Count, I thought, worked out extremely well. I had a lot of fun with that. Some of them, I want to get into sci-fi. Strange Odyssey was my effort. I don't like that. I don't think I did as good a job there. So anyway, I had fun with Marvel. Hulk was okay. Spider-Man was better. Fantastic Four, I thought, was better than Spider-Man. And the next one I was working on was X-Men, which unfortunately I never finished. But there was a semi-complete game that's actually been reviewed because I released it to a reviewer and he played through it. And you can see at least where I was going with that if you want to look up the review. But that was fun to do. Right now, Adventureland XL. Well, I got the original Adventureland in, but I changed some things because some of my viewpoints have changed about a few things. So I've modified a few things where they isn't the way I wanted to express myself in the game. And then I did the XL section, which I went and touched on a lot of other classical areas that I always wanted to do. I try to use themes and ideas that people can relate to. I've had people tell me, wow, I remember playing your game. And the very first time I was in Adventureland and I was in this giant forest and there were trees everywhere, branches hanging over and vines and snakes on the ground and rocks. And this just pathway in front of me, and it was just awesome. I can remember it so vividly as a kid playing. And I went back and I finally found a copy of your old game, and I plugged in and started playing, and it says, I'm in a forest. Visible here are trees. Why did he have that memory? The Critical Bang characters were on a show, and somebody says, what are you doing? He says, I'm playing a adventure game. And they walk over and he's describing what he's doing. And they look over, they said, wait a minute, where are the pictures? It's all words. It says it's running on the greatest graphics processor ever written, ever created, the human mind. So
Yeah.
I hope my games connect that way. I know I'm doing it right when they do. Has anybody played Adventureland XL? No? Okay.
I
So
need
you got,
to.
no, you don't need to. It's just, I was just wondering if anyone had, because I'm always open to criticisms and thoughts and so forth. I'm
I
afraid
just didn't know about it. I'll definitely check it out now.
it's on Steam and needs a Windows PC. Sometimes that's a problem for folks. But the I probably made it too long and too complex. That's why Bubble Bonk is coming out. Play it for 5 minutes.
Hey, some of us have a little bit longer patience and can sit and do stuff for longer than 5 minutes. So thank you for catering to us older people with the desire to play a game for more than 30 seconds like a fidget spinner. So,
Yes.
And Gregory's got a question for us.
Hey, Scott, it's great to see you in person finally.
Hello there, Gregory.
We've talked on Facebook a little bit.
Gregory McGill, yes.
I was curious, did you say something about one of your newer games coming out for older Apple? Or is that newer Apple?
No. Sorry, yeah, it's newer. We're targeting iOS, iPhone,
Okay.
that sort. So sorry about that. I've had people ask, will I come out with the game for my older systems? Be honest, probably not. I don't
Probably
have the bandwidth or the finances to do it.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody came along and said, hey, we're starting a company and we want to pay you to do this, oh, well, I'd think about it. But right now, no.
All right,
It's just,
we'll keep that in mind then.
just isn't something I had thought about.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, sorry, Greg.
Actually, I've got a question here. What was the genesis or the kernel of the Buckaroo Banzai adventure?
Oh, I totally forgot about Buckaroo. Sweeten.
One of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah. It's got a story behind it too. Thanks for asking, Thomas. Buckaroo Banzai is, for those who don't know, a cult classic today. Originally, when they were making the movie, it was supposed to be a cult classic. That was what they were shooting for.
Oh,
so
yes.
Before the movie even came out, they were trying to build a groundswell for it. One of the things they did was decide we're also going to have crossovers, and that would be in the home computer market. Like TI, like Marvel, they asked around and it was like, who should we have do it? And everybody said Adventure International. So they came to us. So that was the key. I did not write that game. I did 10% of the editing of it. That was primarily done by, I think, Ken McNear and Russ Whitmore. You can look at the credits in the game.
Yep, that's correct.
I'm still in touch with both of them. They're still active and alive. Neither one is very much into computers. Ken is living Florida's East Coast. He's an incredible artist and incredibly talented person, and into surfing and lots of good stuff. And Russ is doing more, or he's retired now. I haven't contacted him in quite a while, but he is also alive and well. If you guys enjoyed those games, contact these people. Let them know. Don't just tell me. Tell them, because they are also creative geniuses, and it helps sometimes just to know somebody appreciates what you're doing. I know every one of you will appreciate someone tells you thank you when you do something. So I want to say thank you back to every one of you that's taken the time and effort to reach out and say hello to me. I love making new friends. I think it is extremely cool. And I also know how hard it is for engineers to make friends. So this is a double blessing.
Well, I can say for Russ Wetmore, at least, he pops his head in and out from the Atari 8-bit community forums and whatnot every now and then. And he's actually taken to release all of the source code that he has, including to a game that he started working on but never finished, which was called Lulu. And it was a game built around this big elephant. Just, yeah, this
Wonderful.
big bumbling elephant. Yes.
Very, very cool. And Thomas, your efforts in the hardware and the stuff you've been doing is absolutely tremendous. I finally got a chance to finally meet Thomas in person at VCF in New Jersey. And that was so very cool. And
likewise.
I don't.
Looks like. I'm sorry, Scott.
No, I was going to say I've got nothing right now on my attendance plans for conferences or anything like that. In the past, what I've done is if I get invited to something and if the hosts are willing to pay my way there and take care of me there, I've agreed to many more conferences. My health took a bit of a turn this year. Back in November, I had what I thought was an extreme asthma attack. Went in and found out I was having heart failure, and they put in a pacemaker, which helped tremendously. Then in February, I found out there was another problem, and I got 2 stents. And that was an actual heart attack with part of the heart dying. And then this year, I've been fighting. Since then, mostly breathing issues, health issues with breathing. Still trying to keep going though. Clopus is still an ongoing entity. I don't know how God is going to bless it or where it's going or what's going to happen. But we're struggling. So anything you guys want to do to spread the word about Clopus is wonderful. When Bubble Bonk comes out, if nothing else, spread the word on that. And it'll be free to play. It's going to be advertiser based. It's going to be out on Apple in the probably next week. Probably the release candidate one is going to. I see Bubble Bonk running in the background there. Thank you, Gavin. I don't know if others can see that. I don't know what everyone's seeing right now. I'm seeing Thomas's screen, so I don't know how the screens are working. Had a great deal of fun on Bubble Bonk. The original game was thought of by the company I'm working with. This is their game. I did it as a work for hire with my people helping, and their concept was that there were crates dropping on these missionaries, and you wanted to bubble the crates before they hit, so they didn't get killed. And so I stepped in and said, would they be comfortable with us not killing the people getting hit by the crates? And they said, yeah, okay, why? I said, I just kind of like to not do it that way. And so the whole team brainstormed, and we came up with the idea, as a crate hit somebody on the head, it would sort of pound them into the sand. And so you were trying to keep the survivors from getting pounded into the sand instead. And then we came up with a mechanic that if you're good enough, you can actually figure out how to pull them out of the sand too with the bubbles. Anyway, it's a silly little game, but it's fun. I'm going to be spending the rest of this afternoon probably play testing the release candidate. We've got a short bug list, and then next week we'll be getting that done and pushing this through Apple Review. So come see Bubble Bonk, and please take a look at Stereotypical. Even if it doesn't attract you or you don't think it's something you'd be interested in supporting, if you know somebody who'd like to send a link to, please help if you can. Just spread the word.
Hey, we've got a couple more questions in the chat. Rob's asking a second one. He says, I'll ask another question. Not a game, but was the CRIS actually sold to the general public? And if so,
Oh,
any
yes.
idea where its sales stats were?
Yes, it actually did sell. Gosh, I forgot about that. Good. Thank you, Rob. CRS was Cash Register Inventory System. That's what it stood for. Besides Adventure International Publishing House, I also had a chain of stores. One, two, three. Yeah, three stores at one point, based in Orlando and Longwood. We had one in South Orange Blossom Trail, one in Maitland, and one in Longwood. And we were selling primarily Atari computers. We also were selling TRS-80s. We weren't a Radio Shack affiliate, so you don't want to know how we were selling Radio Shack computers, but we were, because I knew we could do a far better deal than that. We also were selling CompuServe subscriptions. We actually had the VP of CompuServe come down and fly down and visit us and say, "You are our number one seller of CompuServe subscriptions. How are you doing it? We want to know your secret." So we showed him. In any case, the store, like everything else I grew organically. I looked for commercial solutions for COTS, commercial off-the-shelf software, which didn't exist back then because the word COTS didn't even exist. And we needed an inventory system. And I wasn't going to spend $50,000 for an inventory system for a small mom and pop computer store. So I wrote Chris, and I wrote it on the Atari. And then after I got it working, I set it up so my salesmen were getting commissions. Was always a big believer in give everybody a piece of the action. People should have a financial stake or some stake in wanting success to occur. In any case, it was written in Atari. It ran on the Atari, and so we put it in the catalog. Let's see if anybody wants to buy it. I don't remember how many copies sold. I honestly don't, Rob. I don't remember if it was a ton or just a few. I do know that it was in there, and we kept it in the catalog because it was selling.
We will find it at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, is it missing again?
There's got to be an archived copy of it somewhere. Pete just said he purchased Adventureland XL on Steam. All he needed to do was know about it, so he's excited to play that. And then Ruben asks, today we have story artists and programmers. In the past, at the beginning, it was just one person putting his own story into computer programming. Do you then consider yourself an artist as well? Did you do the graphics on some of these early graphics games that you did, Scott?
Hold that question. I want to answer first the comment that you made before that Pete purchased the game on Steam. Pete, thank you. I appreciate that. What I will appreciate even more, anybody who does play the game, if they want to give us some feedback on it. And if you send an email to feedback@clopus.net, or if you're a friend with me on Facebook, you can PM me. I want to know what's working, what's not working in it. I would really like to put that game to bed. It's been in early access far too long. Just not getting a lot of feedback. We're not getting a lot of sell through. If it's garbage, just tell me. Okay, let me know.
Jay also purchased it. So while you're still on that topic, Jay has got one. He just bought it as well, and I have it in my cart ready to go. So I don't have much time to play games, but I'm thinking
I know
about
that. Isn't that a pain? I don't have time to play games, and this bugs me. I did play.
And you're in a game company, Hall. And you're in a game company, Hall.
Yeah, really.
Well, Thomas and Moswell have pretty much made my life so busy doing other things. I don't have time to play games anymore.
I know the feeling. People say, I thought you retired. And I said, I thought I did too. 2016, I thought I retired. I stopped with the aerospace company I'd been working with. But God tapped me on the shoulder and said, no, Scott, you're not retiring. I'm redirecting you. Sometimes I'm confused about this path I'm on. It seems like I'm stumbling about in the dark a lot. I don't know if I'm really going in the direction God wants me to. I'm always open to listen to people. I'm open to criticism. I'm open to comments. So keep that in mind. For the question that you asked about, am I an artist? No, I am not. I am visually challenged, I think. My art is horrible. It is detestable. I'm also not a very good writer, I don't think. But I have people that help me there. I do have a small staff still at Clopas. We do have a narrative team that is very blessed in doing things and saying things well. If you read Escape the Gloomer, I am super proud of. It was Clopas's first effort, still available. Its sell-through has been abysmal, but I think it is a fantastic effort. It literally, remember I said I'd like to do things differently on each game? What I did on this game is you're not playing an adventure game, you're writing a book. You're writing an adventure. What comes out of the game as you play is the story that you make of Escape the Gloomer. So it's kind of unique. And it's got tremendous voice acting in it. It's got all the bells and whistles. But like I said, unfortunately, it didn't sell well. I basically, my wife and I founded the company, and we basically used our life savings on it. So that was it. We're expecting something bigger. It isn't. So going in different directions now. But if you get a chance, try it out too. Obviously,
Hey.
I want more feedback on Adventureland. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
Hey,
Gavin.
along the artist question, I had one too, and I was looking at some of your old game artwork, the cover art. My dad did some of Sierra Online's really early cover art for them. He was an artist, did the paintings for it. Did you engage the same artist for all of your game covers, and was that somebody in the family or?
No, very early on, back when I had the very first game packages, which was a baby bottle liner with a business card tacked onto it, so hardly any packaging. A fellow by the name of Pepe came to us because we were trying to find a company to help us with it. And he built a company around fulfilling our need called AD Venture. And basically they became a marketing company. And he hired the artists for covers. He did all the cover work. He did some of the early cover works himself. He did later, he hired an artist, Hathaway, who just recently passed on, who did some tremendous art for us. And they were the ones that did all the packaging art. And I think some were great. The VIC-20 art was done by Commodore. So if you look at VIC-20 art, that was all theirs. That was their vision of how the game should be packaged. If you look at later efforts of what was done with Commodore and Marvel, you'll see a tremendous change in quality and everything. Sadly, Commodore helped with the demise of Adventure International, with some of the decisions they made, and also how they were having problems at the time. Jack Tramiel was a very interesting fellow, I shall say. And I greatly appreciate the ability to do what I did with the Vic. The later efforts were they strong-armed us out. Oh, not so much. But the early efforts were more towards some Mike Tomachek. I don't know if any of you know him. Very well known in the VIC and Commodore industry. Thomas, you know him. He was instrumental in our joining up with Commodore originally. Not so much what happened later, though.
And Mike paired you guys up with Andy Finkel to do.
Yes. Yes. Andy Finkel, tremendously talented.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I looked at the job that you guys did, taking that engine and cramming it into the cartridge with the database, and I'm going, my God, okay, yeah. I mean, a lot of people never understood. There was just no. There wasn't even enough space for an init routine. It was just you had to jump right into the main loop. But yeah.
100 bytes is 100 bytes.
Hey, Kevin's asking a question. He goes, Scott, I had a TI, but did not own Return to Pirates Island. Did TI give you credit, or did TI give credit to you on the cartridge title screen or manual?
Yes, matter of fact, I think that, let me look. That is one of the few, hold on one second. Let me stand up. Let's see. I've actually got a TI sitting up here that I gotten just to look at. Oh, look at the game. And I don't see the cartridge. It might be in the box. I gave a large portion of my collection away to the Strong Museum in Rochester, New York. They put up a very nice 2-case display back a few years ago. I don't know what the current status is, but they have the majority of my items. I was pretty sure that they gave me credit in there. It's called Return to Pirates Island, and it's a single cartridge, as opposed to the other series, which is just the cartridge that comes with Pirate Adventure, and then you can buy the cassettes for the other 11.
And then Rodney Lives says,
I
I
have it here.
maintain a small gaming blog, and I'll post a link to it soon. Your Adventure XL, that is. So he's going to post that on his blog.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And did somebody just start talking when I stepped on him? Oh, Greg's got it. Gregory has it.
Oh, cool. What does it say?
Yeah, can't read it either.
Programmed by Scott Adams, right? It's the first line.
Okay, there we go. So I guess they did.
Just trying to see if it says anything on the front, but it doesn't. Just the first page.
Okay.
I'll have to disassemble that at some point to see if it was written in GPL.
It was.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
He didn't write it.
Well, you guys are getting quiet. Are we going to give Scott a break now, or do we have any more questions?
Yeah, sorry for monopolizing all the time here.
This time is all for you, Scott. What are you talking about?
Yeah, otherwise I was going to talk about FujiNet for 3 hours, you know.
It's cool.
Never heard one of those conversations before.
Well, when you have a passion, it's good to live it. And especially when a lot of people enjoy it. So that what you're doing, Thomas, is incredible. I'm absolutely blown away by that.
Well, the more questions you guys have, you're saving me from going out into the 100-degree garage and building FujiNets, because I'm trying to, get some orders put together today. And it's been 105 here outside, so the garage has been about 95 for the last few days, and it's been miserable. But hey, when you love what you do, right?
Wow.
And Jay's got his hand up. So
your pick and place machine.
Yeah, I wish my pick and place machine had an air conditioner built into it. I got to move to Texas where it's cooler.
Oh, no,
funny.
Dude, I'm looking. Yeah, no, I'm looking out my window and my lawn is a wheat field now. So,
Jay, what's going on? Well, we got a huge fire up above, not too far from me, right outside of Yosemite, the third one that started in the last week. And the rumors are going around. This fire was started by those Japanese tea lights. Some people have found some tea lights in the area, so it looks like somebody may have had some kind of ceremony. Or I'm hoping it wasn't malicious, but this big one that started.
Learned from this. I mean, dear God, you guys have had wildfires every year now.
It's so dry up there. I mean, if there was a smaller one started last week by a typical someone pulled their car off the side of the road and the exhaust hit some tall weeds and started it. But yeah, it's pretty nasty right now. But Jay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I keep stopping.
Oh, that's all right. No, I was just going to jump in. Scott, I know I've talked to you a couple times on Facebook and really enjoyed the conversations. And but did want to once again give you a happy belated 70th, and super glad that you did not retire. I've been a longtime fan. You've definitely, I think, echoing what many have said today, have had a profound impact on my direction in life, starting back from the earliest of the text things. Also, I think I showed you, if you could virtually sign my Spider-Man here, that would be awesome.
If if you want to, as time permits, if people send things that they would like autographs and provide return postage, I've tried to help out in the past.
Oh, wow.
Whenever
That's
possible.
I was gonna say,
Or when I'm at events, I'm always happy to also.
yeah, I was just at the, I did go to the event this weekend in Atlanta. I was hoping to see actually some familiar faces, but I'll definitely have to make it down your way.
Yeah, I did one in Atlanta a few years back. Usually I get invited to one and that's usually enough.
Yeah.
About the only event that I've ever repeated at is the Midwest Game Classic, because they're relatively close. They're driving distance.
All right. Well, you'll be happy to know, for one, it actually still boots. So that's one of the ones I'm going to try to play.
Wow.
And I think I mentioned before, my all-time favorite is still Account, which, no spoilers, I have not finished to this day.
Okay.
So
I apologize for the ending right now.
It's but I'm excited to check out Adventureland as well, and we'll definitely give you feedback on it. I just purchased that and looking forward to it, and interesting to see something. But excited to get into it, and hopefully we'll have some of the comedy and puzzles that you're so famous for, and I've remembered from all these years. But anyhow, but really appreciate you doing this. Great to see you in person. I really enjoyed our chats, and I just hope you know the impact you've had. As I think I've told you, is that some of the minute details I still remember from the original 12 games all these years later. The puzzles, the comedy, everything has made it a huge thing. It's like I just played them yesterday. So realize you had an impact and very, very meaningful contribution and motivator, I think, for a lot of people over all these years. And glad to see you're still doing it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Jay, it is not showing me your screen at all. So
no.
I don't know if it's supposed to. I'm still looks like I'm still looking at Gregory for some reason. I don't know what's.
Oh, you might have pinned Gregory.
How do I unpin him?
I think if you just right click and or not right click, this is Zoom.
Well, go in the upper right and do view
Got
and
it.
gallery.
I did it.
There we go.
Pin. Thank you. That's the type of help. Now, Jay, speak again so I can see you.
Hey, hello. And it's,
there we go. Okay.
Yeah,
now
there
I
we
got
go.
you. Thank you. I was technically challenged there. I appreciate that. Do you want to tell me your last name?
Yeah, it's Gallagher. Yeah, we were recently talking, I think. So
okay.
I'm up here in Tennessee.
Very cool.
But yes, I'm very excited about getting back to it because again, I think I finished every single one of them except for the Count, and that by far was my favorite. And I also liked. I even wanted to ask you, kind of thinking back then, on most games, there was one path, to get through it. It was one solution. And one of the things that really I loved about your games were not only the little subtleties. I mean, I prefer the 2-word text only. Because you did, like, you said there from the quote earlier, you have to use your mind. It really made you think about it. Whereas the later, even graphics, some of the other games, you could see whatever thing was painted in last, you knew probably was the thing you were going to pick up, whatever wasn't part of the background. I really liked the visualization that you had to put in. But one of the things we talked about is that I love the fact that there was multiple solutions. Getting out of the window, you could try one way, it might work 1 out of 6 times, but it also might not. And that was one of those frustrations. Like, I know I worked the one time, this has got to be the right way to do it. But then having the ability to come up with an alternate solution that in your mind would be like, there's no way this can fail. Like if I take a huge heavy object now and use it as my anchor point, you can't go anywhere. And then that was, and there might have even been more solutions, but I just thought that was extremely innovative. And like I said, I remember all these years just because I thought it was just a creative way to do it. It really made you think. And even between the 12 adventures, it was, like you said, nothing really repeated, very original, and I would even say, like, where did you come up with all these different ideas? And
inspired by God is all I can say.
That's amazing.
I am Personally, many of you probably know what the Bible says, or have heard the verse where God created man in his own image. And there's always a lot of discussion about what that means. For myself, what I've arrived at, and I haven't heard many other people say this or anyone else, I don't see God as an anthropomorphic being with 2 legs, 2 arms, head and arms and all that. To me, that in his own image means he gave us a piece of himself. He gave us free will. And that is so awesomely incredible. That's what sets us apart from the NPCs in our world, like the dogs and the cats and everything else. We have a piece of God. He's given us the ability to choose, to make decisions, to create. And yes, I can feel the spirit on me. He gave us the ability to create and steps back and lets us do it. And that is just so incredibly awesome. And I enjoy doing it as long as I can. I think that's probably one of the reasons I haven't been able to play many games. I think I have more fun writing them.
Okay, I bought it, Scott. Are you happy? It was only $5. I had to buy it.
Thank you. And did you read number 3 on that list? Pay attention. Number 3 was very important.
Can't lose. Come on.
Pop that up again.
How can you not lose?
I deliberately rewrote the game. Remember, I said that there's a change of mindset. You cannot lose. I don't care what you do that you think has ruined the game. There's another way. We're talking about alternate routes here, Jay. There's another way you can do things in every single instance. Have fun with that.
You know, I got to ask, one thing I learned after growing up at Sierra Online and working for Ken and Roberta for a while is their main goal, especially at the early games, was to sell hint books. Was that your goal ever? I mean, that they flat out told me our goal is we're making more money selling hints on their 976 phone number and selling hints on their bulletin board that I actually created for them and selling hint books. That was their goal. And they made their games almost impossible to solve without either calling in for a hint or buying a hint book. So was that ever in the back of your mind with some of those games?
No, it was never a goal, but I did see it happening because we had people pirating our game. But let's face it, $14.95 is a lot of money to people back then. And a lot of people would buy a copy and make copies for friends, et cetera, et cetera. It was a fact of life. But no one ever seemed to make copies of the hint books, probably because there were no home copiers at the time. And it would cost $1 a sheet at the library. So they were buying hint books and hint sheets. And yes, that was another thing that we pioneered. I came up with the idea, was the hint sheet. And I didn't want it to give it away. And that's why I came up with the numeric code so that you could read ahead, but nothing you read by accident was going to spoil the game for you.
Nice. Yeah, I remember when I got their game, Ulysses and the Golden Fleece. I was so frustrated with the game, I ended up reading the book. Thinking, well, the book is going to tell me certainly what I'm missing. And I remember when I started working at Sierra Online, I mentioned that, and they just started laughing and said, it's got nothing to do with the book. You know, it's hint books. We wanted you to buy a hint book. So reading all of the Greek mythology wouldn't have helped you one bit. And it didn't.
But it expanded your mind. It
Absolutely.
didn't hurt that you read it.
True. And somebody posted a link to Adventure International one of your catalogs from 1983 as well in the archives.
Oh, cool. I wonder if that has, let's see, as soon as it pops up, I'll see how recent that is. Yeah, that was one of the good ones. So there's Rally Speedway on the front cover. That was John Anderson. Let's see if I can jump ahead. There's Maxi Crass, Maxi Mail, Chris. Yeah, this was in the peak of just. Oh, this is so cool. I love how that you can just scroll right through it. I'm looking to see the adventure games. Jim Pearson. Oh, here we go. Adventures. Oh, what do we got? Standard, Atari, North Star, CPM. Good graphic adventures. It looks standard color. Oh, I had color computer. I forgot about that.
They've got Chris on there too.
Okay, so yes, we only went up to 6. Saga, Atari. If it only went up to 6 on Atari, then that was it. So that's as far as they went. This would have been one of the last, if not the last catalog. Because it's got TI in it. And TI was right at the end. Now, TI and Commodore are the 2 of the reasons that AI went under. TI because they did get the games out, but then that was also simultaneous with them announcing they were getting out of the industry and selling the computers for $50. And so they only did one run of the games, and that was the end of it. But I feel blessed that they were able to get that, at least that one run out, which was great. So for whoever asked the question earlier, I'm sorry, I forgot who it was. The answer is yes, we only went up to 6. Yeah, because neither Apple or Atari showed the other ones.
Nice. Well, Scott, I think we're kind of fading away here, unless anybody is still holding out on something. I know Brian came back. He left and came back, so he must really enjoy this.
And I've seen some people that logged off and said goodbye, and I'm sorry I missed it in the chat. I'm just seeing it retroactively. And so if you get a chance to watch this later, just note that I did see your wonderful comments, and I am reading them, and I thank you for coming. It's been great. I'm hoping I'm making some more friends here today.
Hey, and to let you know, I upped my contribution to $100. I want.
Oh, wow!
I want the better package. I want to see this game happen. So I fully support this community. I absolutely love this community, and I love to see creators that have been creating for more than 40 years still creating. So I don't know how soon I'm going to play this Adventure XL. It depends on how quick I get in the garage today and if I don't pass out a heat stroke.
Yeah, please don't.
My wife's not real happy with me. I worked out there quite a bit yesterday, but I really put off a lot of orders this week that I normally don't do, just because it's been so hot, and after work I haven't wanted to go out in the garage, but they got to go out today. So
could you close the garage door and open the door to the house and get some relief?
No, what I tend to do is I go fall in the pool fully dressed, and then I come back in and I start working with the fan on.
I got
so I kind of have a built-in swamp cooler, but
yeah, I totally relate. But anyway, thank you personally. I want to thank anybody who does help us along on our goals, and I want to thank you, Gavin, for what you just said. So thank you.
Well, Scott, you've been an important part of my life for a long time, and a more important part the last couple of months. So I really appreciate your friendship and the communication that we have on a daily basis. And like I said, I just the things that you're doing, I think are fantastic. The things that you have done, you've influenced so many lives that you don't even know about over the decades that you've been doing this. So, if I can give back it's not much, but, we'll see. If I get some more sales this week, maybe I'll up it a little bit higher. And I hope other people do. I really do. It's a small price. I think you're asking, and this Adventureland 2, whether I play it or not, I'm not sure, but for $5, how could I go wrong? I spend more than that on a cup of coffee. So, I encourage you guys out there to support the people that do develop, the Thomases and the Moswells out there, the Scotts out there, even Ken and Roberta. I know they're back in the game world again too. So if we can support these people, I'm all for it. These kind of games have a special place in my heart. I was never much of a shooter type game. I loved more of the adventure games, the stuff that I had to think about, the strategy games. Even as frustrating as they were, they still were an important part of my life and my memories and my youth. And, I know a lot of the people that are on here feel the same way. Look, Greg just got up and look at that menagerie of PCs he has in the background. I see some amazing old IBMs and Macs, and there's an Atom down there too. I just saw the Atom.
For those of you that have fond memories of Adventureland, here's a challenge to you. If you do get the game, the first step's always the hardest. make sure you take the time to sit down and commit to playing for 20 minutes, 15 minutes even. Commit to that. That's all I ask. Commit to playing for 15 minutes, and then put it aside, and then see if it pulls you back in or not. Are you feeling the excitement again? Are you feeling the interest? What has changed? Wait a second. Do I misremember, or is something going on here? Let me know.
Yeah, feedback's important. That was the one thing I did at Sierra Online when I worked there officially, is I did Q&A for some of their games. And it's good to have the feedback. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Because I got a feeling Scott might be working on some other things that he hasn't told any about yet, and got to give him the feedback to keep him going.
I had another side thought before I forget. Ken and Roberta, I don't know if they're going to get a chance to see this. I know they're involved with their new release, which sounds really, really awesome. I want to say to Ken and Roberta, thank you, thank you, thank you. When we were starting on Bubble Blanc and I needed to increase my staff to work on this project, they were able to point me in the direction of an asset. She is tremendous, and she's been helping us out. Her name's, I don't want to embarrass her, so I'm not going to say her name because I don't have permission. But anyway, I really appreciate that they pointed an asset to me. And so thank you.
Yeah, Ken and Roberta, it was great to see them coming back into the community. I know that there's lovers of Sierra Online and there's haters of Sierra Online, and the company went through a lot of transitions. I got to witness a lot of them growing up in Oakhurst. My dad doing some of the early artwork, but Ken's brother John, actually, I used to hang out at his house all the time as a kid and play the games. And
I think I'm friends with him on Facebook.
John, I haven't been able to get a hold of him. He's kind of
not for a long time. Now that you mention it, it's like I haven't heard from him in quite a long time. So I wonder if he stepped back from Facebook. A lot of people have.
Yeah, absolutely. He may have, but you guys are all so important to me, and if I can help support you in any way, as I said, this was your day on Vinny's Computer Center. It's not mine. It's not FujiNet. It's not any of the stuff that we've
it's our
talked
day.
about before.
It's this group. There's 27 people right now. This is our day. Don't put me up on a pedestal. Okay.
I'm sorry, Scott, but a lot of people have put you up on a pedestal. So
right. But I'm jumping off. I'm coming down, and I'm saying, yes, that's cool. Now we all belong on a pedestal. God gave each and every one of us gifts. And just because we use the gift that God gave us doesn't make us any special than anyone else. He loves each and every one of us. He loves us each. If you were the only person around, he would still love you tremendously. There's no favorites with God. He loves us all. Therefore, just because I'm using a gift that makes other people happy doesn't mean you owe me anything. I'm just doing what God asked me to do. So don't put me on a pedestal.
We're grateful for the things that you've done and you've been blessed to be able to do. So
yes.
Thank you for sharing your treasures with us.
Well, to remove the pedestal and take us all down a notch or two, when I went downstairs earlier, my wife had asked me, "Oh, are you still on your little video chat with your geeky friends?"
There we go. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Same with my wife.
Would you like a sandwich? Milk and cookies?
That would be nice. Hey, and I see Mike.
Our wives always keep things in perspective.
I see my friend Mike just got here. Better late than never.
Hi, Gavin.
Mike is another early one. Mike was kind of behind the Ace 80 column cartridge back for the old Ataris years and years ago that we kind of re-released here about a year and a half ago now. So Mike's been around the community for a very long time as well. So
yep.
Mike, yep. What's your last name?
Aldridge.
Aldridge. Have we met before?
Scott Adams sounds familiar. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, I held the copyrights to the Ace 80s for a long time. Actually started producing them right away back when I got the copyright, and geez, I don't know how many years ago that was, 20, 30, cool. 40. From the guys in Chaos. What's this?
Okay.
Klaus Buchholz is the one who wrote the code. And then a couple guys working for City of Lansing we started up with Atari, and
Mhm.
they just decided they didn't want to sell it, so I took it over, and it was a lot of fun back then, you know.
Very, very neat.
And then just
Yeah.
lately, well, what's it been, about a year or so, Gavin I gave him the rights to create it, and he whipped up a cartridge that would work, because, you know, the old cartridges we had was kind of weird. I don't know if they were OSS cartridges or what they were, but he designed something that worked, and so you can thank
Gavin
Gavin.
did that. I didn't realize that. Very
Well,
cool.
it was mostly my friend in Israel that did that, Nir. I just did the hardware side of it. Nir was able to take the old code and modify a little
So-
bit. We kind of redeveloped the old OSS2 cartridge, and he was able to disassemble the software and make it work on that new cartridge. And
Yeah.
So
To provide a little bit of context for what this is here, the Klaus Buchholz had written an 80-column display driver. It was originally called E80, and it went through a few different variations. There was even one for the ATR 8000 as well, called DT80. And then
Yeah,
finally,
DT80.
Yep. And ACE 80 was the version that went in, loaded itself up, and patched in the e-handler so that it would replace and allow normal text to go to a simulated 80-column display on the Atari high-res display, which you had to use a monitor without color burst on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the neat thing with the DT80 is it also now works on the FujiNet. So you slap a DT80
Yes.
cartridge in, put a FujiNet in it, and you're in CPM,
Yep.
which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah,
A lot easier than using my ATR 8000, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was weird. We slammed together a Z80 emulator and a high-level CPM BDOS layer and had that working like over a weekend. So yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Tom, for doing that.
And again, that's what's so great about this community. There's so many different people that are involved in it. And I know, while we're supporting Scott and his things, Thomas is still looking for developers. So if any of you guys out there are code jockeys, he really needs help with the FujiNet and bringing it to other platforms. So I can't stress enough that Tom has given his life to this project over the last couple of years, literally.
Yeah.
So if anybody has any programming skills whatsoever and I'd like to get involved in this project, we welcome the help, and Thomas would welcome the help, and he will go to any length to get you up to speed on it. He'll help you set up the environment. He'll help bring you up to speed on the how, why, and what of the current FujiNet and what we're looking for. So anybody is available to help, please reach out to Thomas. He could definitely use the help.
I'm big on the one-on-one, and as far as just a small update here, we did a major announcement and demonstration at Kansas Fest, which just happened over the weekend for the Apple II community, and their jaws hit the floor. So
they weren't aware of this.
No, yet. We're slowly working our way. We're slowly working our way around the different communities. When we managed to engage the Apple II and Commodore 64 crowds in this, there's going to be an avalanche of users. The Atari units are still selling. There are thousands of them out there now. We were thinking maybe we would sell 100, 200 maybe.
Wow.
But they just keep flying off the shelves. And we've got a guy, we've got guys. This is the thing about FujiNet too. Basically all I wanted to do was build a tree fort. I wanted a place where just a tree fort, just a place where, like, the thing that I wanted as a kid, a couple of us just hanging out, hacking on stuff together.
Yes.
And that was the model I have here for FujiNet. And right now we've got people that are kind of in corners in this tree fort working on bring ups to other platforms. There's a guy doing one for the ZX Spectrum right now. There's one. There's one for like the NEC PC8801, every machine that you can think of, and the goal is literally to hit every single 8-bit micro and game console on planet Earth by the end of it.
Thomas has made me expand my collection quite a bit. I do have a ZX
Sorry.
Spectrum clone that I've got put together.
Mhm.
I bought 2 Atari Lynx because, well, he teased me with the Lynx version, so now I have 2 of them. Just got the screen updates from Australia in to do those replacements.
Yep.
The Coleco Atom, I had never touched an Atom. Well, now I have an Atom because I'm making Coleco Atom Fujinets. You know, I'm waiting for my Apple II. I'm still, I know I'm going to get closer and closer. But you
the
know,
Lynx version, the Lynx version is the hardware on the Lynx version is done, it's done. The hardware is out there, so anybody that wants to take and build these things, they can. Where I'm wanting to take and expand the firmware a bit more, but even at this stage, I was able to take and make a version of the International Space Station tracker to run on the Lynx, and
Nice.
that made RJ Michael blink a couple of times.
hey, Thomas, I don't see the Lynx version on the GitHub. Where is it?
I thought it was there.
He's got the Apple. He's got an Apple. He's got some Apple II stuff.
We just released the Apple II schematic. I'll ask him because I know it's there.
It'll be there soon. Then.
I have one. So
yeah, well, I want to build them. That's why I bought these 2 Lynx, was to get those things going. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, even at this point here, the UDP reflection works. I mean, Oswald and I were able to play a game of Rampart over the internet, which, you know, world's longest comlinks cable. So it works. Gosh, what else? So, oh yeah, the Apple II version. When we first got the Bring Up working and proved that it worked, just as an aside here, the way that the Apple II version works, it works over the Smart Port, which that's the Apple II disk controller interface that's been expanded for generalized use. So if you think about it, we're using a disk controller. We're abusing a disk controller as a network adapter. So when we made the Bring Up videos and showed Woz the project, I still have the email that he sent back to me, and it was just a single sentence, and it was just fucking insane. Those were the two words he brought back. So
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. So
very, very cool.
He has a Rev Zero unit going in his direction as well. We went ahead and sent him one.
Got to get that signed.
Yep. Oh, that's what's weird too. When Moswald and I were at VCF Midwest last year, they had decided to take. Moz had decided, well, we'll take and put a Fujinet in a limited edition box with some velvet and some velvet cloth and everything. Put a box on it and put it in the auction. Well, somebody literally, when it went into the auction, the price just kept going up and up and up and up and up. And by the time I think it was done, I think it went for $200, something like that. And so it was like, okay, so what should we do here as a Moz? I'm like, I guess we better sign it. So that was weird. Anyway, so.
Yeah, us geeks are weird. We like stuff like that. So.
Yes.
So again, you guys, any way you can help support the community to keep it growing, please do so. These guys are doing amazing work, and I know I've tried to shove money down Thomas's throat a few times, and he's very humble, and I know that he does have a Patreon account, and that's the only way I can support him. But I would love to see more people getting more involved in our community and continuing to have it expand and grow. So thank you all for being a part of it.
Yep. I wanted to make a mention for back in the realm of Scott Adams' adventures here. I posted a link in the chat to a tool chain called Scott Kit that basically gives you a Scott Adams adventure game assembler with some example code. And
nice.
Make
this is the 2-word, right?
Yes.
Which is cool because I don't have my original tools anymore. If I was actually ever to write a 2-word game again for the old systems, I couldn't.
Yep, it's there's actually 2 sets. There's Scott Kit and There is SAC, which is the compiler, and SAD. Those are written. That's written by someone else in Perl.
Where-
So
Okay, I didn't see the links.
Here, I'll put it again.
Does Zoom publish the chat with it, or is it-
I can get a copy of it. We'll put a link to it on the YouTube channel so we can have a transcript. Somebody else has asked for that as well, but I just posted the link again, Scott, to the Scott kit.
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, if you can grab the chat also while you're at it and have it
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, that's what I meant, the chat, not the transcript, the chat.
Okay. Because the transcript is kind of iffy. It's doing its best, but some words just kind of confuse it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You know, words like Commodore and
It actually got that one.
and TRS-80 and
Oh yeah.
Oh, and to anybody
Okay.
that's listening in the TRS-80 community, when I first posted about this, I referred to it as the Trash 80, which is what I always grew up calling it, lovingly calling it. You know, I sold them. I was a manager at Radio Shack for a few years too. I was, so it was no disrespect was meant. I still, lovingly refer to it as the Trash 80. So I apologize to anyone that I may have offended.
Well, hey, I've got
Offense is
a
always in the
Commodore
holder.
VIC 20 for sale.
Okay. Looks like
Okay, you
people are
guys. Well,
starting
I
to drop.
appreciate it. And thank you again, Scott, for taking so many hours out of your Sunday. We do appreciate
thanks,
your time.
Scott.
And it was, very enjoyable to talk with all of you today.
If you guys don't mind, I'm going to have a closing prayer. If you want to drop off now, anybody who doesn't want to be part of that, just feel free. Dear God, Jesus, Lord and Savior, thank you for the blessing of getting to meet all these people virtually, if not live someday. And I pray that eventually I get to meet them all in eternity. I thank you for watching over us, for loving us, and for creating us, and for the incredible gift that you've given each and every one of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you, Scott. And thank you all for coming. Keep an eye out for our next adventure. I'm not sure when and where it's going to be, but I'm sure we're going to have another one because we love doing this. So thank you all for taking the time out of your mornings and saving me from the hot garage for a couple hours. And now I'm going to go out there to do your bidding. So, thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Good seeing you again, Gavin.
Thanks,
See you
Gavin.
guys.
See ya.
See y'all.
All right.
Bye.
And find me on Facebook.